Hi, I'm horror author Paul Edwards. Tonight I'm reading Monsterland magazine, issue number 1 from February 1985. Let's look through this vintage magazine together and see what kinds of monster goodness is in here. Monsterland magazine, issue number 1 from February 1985. I know what you're thinking. It says monster. No, it's Monsterland. See the little bitty writing? It is Monsterland magazine. But this is a Forrest J. Ackerman production. And of course, he wanted to remind everyone that he was the co-creator of Famous Monsters of Filmland. So he used the word monster in the same font that Famous Monsters magazine had used for years. And at the time that this came out, Famous Monsters of Filmland was defunct and had stopped publication. It did come back later. But Forey was starting a new project now with Monsterland. So let's see what we've got here. Ooh, the complete Godzilla saga. On the set of Night of the Living Dead. Wow. All right, let's get right to it. Here, Forey is giving us his background for those who aren't familiar with the fact that he was friends with a whole bunch of vintage horror movie stars. Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Jr., and all kinds of other luminaries in the genre. Writers, directors, artists. King Karloff remembered. It's no surprise that Forey would introduce a new monster magazine by starting off with Boris Karloff. Frankenstein versus Dracula. How nice. Of course, this was the mid-'80s. Horror movies had changed. They were allowing more graphic violence and gore on the screen than had been shown previously. So, Forey had to keep up with the current movies, even though he preferred the classics. Now, this I would have loved as a kid. A complete rundown of Godzilla's movies. Starting with Godzilla, King of the Monsters. And then going through Gigantus the Fire Monster, which we know now under the title Godzilla Raids Again. King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla versus the Thing, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Monster Zero, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. The rundown here must go through all of the Showa-era Toho films, which they stopped making in 1974 with Terror of Mechagodzilla. Yep. And it does not have Godzilla in 1985, which is released in some markets as The Return of Godzilla. Maybe the movie hadn't been released yet when this went to print, but it was certainly coming, so you'd think they might have a mention of it. But no. Okay. It's interesting to see these crazy, they didn't use the word photoshopped, but that's what it is. Photoshopped images that they use for publicity for some of these movies. Like this is obviously for Godzilla versus Megalon, but this is not a frame of film from Godzilla versus Megalon. This is, you know, superimposed figures that somebody put together in a pastiche. I used to have the first issue of Fangoria magazine, which similarly went through all of the Showa era Godzilla movies in that debut issue. Yikes. Oh, a piece on the Acker Museum. So Forrest J. Ackerman would let people into his home to see his extensive collection of horror and science fiction movie memorabilia. And he would refer to his house as the Acker Mansion, or the Acker Museum, I guess in this case. And he had all kinds of vintage goodies. Did any of you ever get to see Forey's house when he was alive? I wish I had. Oh. You get your Star Wars custom masks. Now, really, who's going to go as an Ewok? Yikes. Oh, that is supposed to be Admiral Akbar? Really? Huh. Okay. Ooh. Oh, man. Check this one out. Yikes. There's a whole subsection of masks just for hooded ghouls. These are the Don Post masks. They had a really good reputation. Oops. Many Harpy returns. I see that Forey is still using the terrible puns that he used all the time in Famous Monsters of Filmland. Oh gosh. All right, let's take a look here. Makeup prosthetics. Oh, plucked eye socket. That's what you need. Yeah. And a witch nose. Why not get both? And you can get a Quasimodo eye and a hanging eye. You get your choice of eye horrors. Mummy hands, Dracula hands, monster hands, reptile hands, and gorilla hands down here. Eesh. Oh, and you get different kinds of bony fingers. Red bony fingers, blue bony fingers, white, green, flesh. Huh. Okay. Or werewolf hands. Look, more monster gloves. Oh my gosh. Then you get the funny ears. And a tongue, really? Here's a way to not get sued. Space ear tips. You know, you certainly wouldn't want to say Star Trek. A book on how to operate a successful haunted house. Oh, now I kind of want that. Oh, a book on Tom Savini, the makeup wizard. Rare treats from the arcane archives of Karlon Torgos. Wow. Oh, remember the Four Skulls of Jonathan Drake? Yikes. Uh, 40 wants your face. Oh my gosh. Tired of your face? Send it to the Acker Monster. Warning, faces cannot be returned. Oh man. Oh. You know, considering how big of a movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind was, I'm surprised that it isn't remembered more today. It was very popular when it came out. Yeah, see, it's sort of a mishmash, though, of things. You get everything from E.T., the family-friendly monster, to the Cannibal Queen. This was a problem they had in a lot of these 80s monster magazines. This was a problem in Fangoria, too. You had people that wanted the vintage monsters, you know, Frankenstein and Dracula and the Invisible Man and so forth. And then you had people who wanted the then current slasher movies and splatter movies. You had the people that wanted the science fiction, like Saturn III. You know, all of which they would try to accommodate in these magazines. And it was sort of a mishmash, like the tone of the magazine would end up uneven this way. Oh, wow. Just remember, when this magazine came out, there was only the movie The Terminator from 1984. There was no Terminator 2 yet. All anybody knew of was the Terminator as the bad guy, as a monster. It was only in the second movie that they made him the good guy. So does the Terminator count as a monster? Yes, I think so. Company of Wolves. Move over Indiana Jones. And let me think. Had Temple of Doom come out yet when this came out? It was 85, wasn't it? Or was it 84? I know. Flame me in the comments for not knowing right off the top of my head. One thing I noticed is that this is glossier paper than Famous Monsters of Filmland was. Oh, Forrest J. Ackerman's favorite of all of the great horror stars was Lon Chaney Sr., who he had loved when he was a kid. He was a silent film, actually, he was the silent film horror star. And Forrest J. Ackerman loved the fact that he was introducing new generations of monster fans to the movies he loved as a kid, Lon Chaney's films. Yikes. Lugosi Lives Eternal, a nightmare of horror. I guess this back cover is supposed to serve as like a pinup of Lugosi, but you know, it's clearly only a part of an ad for either the play Dracula, which Lugosi starred in for a long time, or for the movie Dracula, which Lugosi starred in, because you can see the ooh-la there. So it's like an excerpt from a larger poster. But you know what? It's Lugosi as Dracula. I'll take it. All right. Forrest J. Ackerman's Monsterland magazine seemed to go a little faster than Famous Monsters of Filmland did. But I think he did a reasonable job of keeping up with the times, but also trying to balance it out with what people expected from Famous Monsters of Filmland. So, Monsterland magazine. There it is. The premiere issue. Listen, if you enjoy classic monsters and vintage horror, you'd love my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. I'm self-published on Amazon. I've written a series of novels that take place in a haunted forest, each of which deals with a completely new cast of characters, and each of which deals with a different monster or supernatural threat. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books, for sale on Amazon. Thanks for spending some time looking through issue number 1 of Monsterland magazine with me. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.